Great. Okay, and we are live. Thank you so much, guys, for actually joining in. Um, without further ado, it's actually another time to actually learn from professionals and experts in the field. And our facilitator today is actually one of the respected drone professionals in the industry, in the African landscape, and even globally. It's a person to which I so much value his opinion, insights, and his direction. He is someone I consider as a mentor. So that is Tawanda Chihambakwe. Thank you so much for joining today, and I am super excited to to have you share with the next generation of drone professionals, more specifically in the agricultural industry, those who are going to be going ahead to use drones to change the paradigm and also transform the landscape. So, but before we actually dive into the flesh of the matter, as usual, we would actually be having our usual brief about what we do, who we are at Precision Feed Academy, the organizer of Precision Agriculture Incubation Program. So, Joseph, are you ready? So you can actually take it away. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Good morning once again, everyone. Good day wherever you're watching. It's really good to be here again. And before going to today's webinar, as usual, I am going to be giving us a brief about Precision Feed Academy. So let's get going. So at Precision Feed Academy, we on a vision to create a world where every young person, regardless of their background, has the opportunity to become a digitally savvy farmer or agricultural professional, driving sustainable and equitable growth in their communities through the transformative power of technology. And our mission is to raise next gen farmers that are tech inclined and digitally savvy. So, about Precision Field Academy, we are a social enterprise. We train and build the capacity of young professionals in modern and emerging technology for the future of work and to lead with precision agriculture. So we believe in core three methodology, which is education and knowledge sharing, training and skill development, coaching and mentorship. And besides this, we have tech skills in focus, which are basically six. Drone technology is one. So we are leveraging the power of drone technology to transform the way agriculture is being practiced, uh, including drone technology in pest detection and management, farm mapping survey, uh, plant inventory, and the likes. Also, we have GIS and remote sensing. Uh, this deals with collection of data with aid of satellites, um, and also the use of drones in remote sensing. We also have data science in agriculture, which deals with varieties of data uh, on both crop um, classification, different types of crops, or data around agriculture generally. So that is what the data science in agriculture is covering. So we have robotics and Internet of Things. It's more like intelligent systems that can actually perform certain function instead of you. So like we have embedded systems to activate smart irrigation, maybe in your greenhouse or on your open field farm. So this is more about the robotics and the Internet of Things aspect. So we have machine learning and artificial intelligence. Uh, Artificial intelligence can actually help with disease prediction or to actually give you a foresight of what might come as a mishap in the future in your kind of farming cultivation, whether you're doing fruit vegetables or leaf vegetable or the staple crops and all of whether cereals, because this can actually give you insight through the help of data that is being collected from your farm. So you can actually get that. And lastly, we have enterprise development. The end goal of all these trainings is that our scholars or participants or students who have engaged with our programs will be able to create an enterprise that is focused, yes, at solving problems, creating sustainable solutions, global sustainable solutions that can actually help agriculture to thrive better. So why do we do what we do? Um, we discovered there is a skill gap that needs to be closed, and young professionals, young people really need to build skills on both the technical part and the enterprise skill for the future of work in agriculture. And also, observing the trend is not enough. So youths need to be included. It's about inclusion, youth inclusion now, that they need to be an enabler and a player in the fourth industrial agricultural revolution. They need to be fully involved. So also we see that for African agriculture game to to actually change the paradigm of agriculture as well. Technology is a platform we can actually leverage. So technology is the key to unlock African agriculture potential. So why should you join us at Precision Field Academy? We are creating the future we want in agriculture. We are designing the future, we are pioneering the future, and bringing in innovations and initiatives to actually see that agriculture is practiced with precision and efficiency. Also, we connect you to the world of information in terms of opportunities, scholarships, internship, volunteerships, on which you actually going to be enjoying or benefit from on both local and international scale for your career growth. So we also believe so much in skill development, project collaboration, enhancement of trainings, community interaction in workshops and symposiums. And also we have access to coaching and mentorship for our participants, which is coming from industry leaders and career professionals in precision agriculture. So basically, at Field Academy, we are building a community where young tech inclined and digitally savvy farmers and professionals included. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Joseph. Thank you so much for sharing about Precision Field Academy, the organizers of this program. Yes, without further ado, yeah, let's go to the topic of today. I think our speaker is actually here, Tawanda. Yeah, let me, but before I actually bring him on stage, um, before I actually bring him on stage, I will quickly read his profile. And he's going to be talking to us on the topic becoming a certified drone professional. I know a lot of you joining us, you are very interested in this topic. How, who is a drone professional? You'll be learning from Tawanda today. Um, and the process, or things you need to know to become a certified drone professional. Emphasis on that. So Tawanda is the CEO of Precision Drone Training and the Director of Precision Area Growth. He has over 7 years of experience in the drone industry, where he has been a pioneer and leader in shaping the framework and standard for drone services, consultancy, ethics, and training in Zimbabwe and many parts of Africa. Through Precision Area, we established the Zimbabwe First Civil Aviation Authority certified drone service provider uh, of precision agriculture and disaster risk reduction, including area crop spraying, crop monitoring, and land mapping for crop protection and early detection of pests and diseases. Tawanda is the director of Zimbabwe Flying Lab, a member of the Flying Lab network around the globe. So join me to heartily welcome. Tawanda Chihambakwe, the CEO of Precision Area Group. Tawanda, are you ready for us? And yeah. All right. We are good to go now. Thank you so much, Tawanda. Yeah, so Tawanda, can we actually have you on stage, your camera on, and we already have your presentation now. That is clearly sorted now. Uh, okay. All right. All right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. And we also have a present. So you can put your presentation at slideshow, so it can become more yeah, good, good, good. So
Brilliant.
I think with this we can actually have videos and all that. Yeah. So Tawanda, please take it away, sir.
Right. Thank you so much for this great opportunity to be on this platform today. Apologies for that hiccup there. There was a bit of technical issues trying to get the presentation on. Thank you to Femi and your team for putting together this great program that I believe will really help to shape the future of agriculture and the future of work when it comes to the application of drones in the field of agriculture, or sustainable agriculture, precision agriculture practices. It's really an honor and a privilege for me to be on this platform today to just share with you a little bit about what it means to become a professional within the space. Femi and some of his team are already professionals within this space, and part and parcel of actually developing this program is what a professional does. A professional contributes towards the broader community and the space and ensures that the standards that are within that specific profession are spread to others. And this is really a really good platform that's been set up for this. So as you would have heard, my name is Tawanda Chihambakwe, and I'm going to be presenting to you today just a little bit about what it's been to come from someone who was a novice within the space to eventually becoming a professional. So what does it mean to be a professional? I think it's important that we first define what it means, what a professional is. I think everyone on the platform already kind of knows what a drone is, or a remotely piloted aircraft, but what is a professional within that space? So professional ultimately is someone who is part and parcel of a profession, or any person who looks at working in a specified professional activity. And in this particular case, when we were talking about drones, it also describes the standards of education and training that prepare you and I to be part of the profession. And it's important that we have a particular set of skills and knowledge that are necessary to perform certain functions and roles within that profession. Okay, so that is really what we're looking at today. And as I start, what I want to let you know a little bit about myself. As you would have heard already, I am privileged in that I started within the drone industry within the early days of the commercialization of the industry, so many, many years ago now. To date, I have acquired the knowledge, the skills, and the training necessary to become a user of the technology and a professional within the space. I represent an organization called Precision Aerial Group, which I'll share with you about shortly. But in my own capacity, I also operate drones. I am a drone pilot, a certified licensed drone pilot in 3 countries within the Southern Africa region, that is Zimbabwe, South Africa, and Zambia. I'm also a drone pilot instructor, certified within South Africa and Zimbabwe. I'm currently undergoing my RPAS examiner licensing to become an examiner of drone pilots as well. I did my initial studies in a professional kind of space, and they shifted over into the technology space. And now hold a number of different qualifications, including as a certified UAS consultant, as well as other aviation training courses. If you look there as well, I also speak on the drone industry internationally. I'm an international speaker, as well as a council member within the South Africa Drone Council that looks at advancing the use of drones within that space. I'm privileged to have also co-authored 2 books on the drone profession, called Drone Professional 1, Drone Professional 2. And I think Femi was also a co-author of Drone Professional 3. And I encourage you to get those books. I also am a YouTuber where I post different things that I'm learning and different things that we're doing within the drone space on YouTube. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So where did my journey begin for me to become a professional? Initially, I was involved in helping to actually develop the recreational side of drones. I initially started within the space of actually assembling and putting together drones with a friend of mine and a partner of mine back in 2015 and early 2016. That I first got involved within the drone space. And that's just about 8 years ago now. That we're looking at 8 to 9 years ago now that we've been in the space. From that point, we've grown, and locally I was involved with helping to actually establish the drone regulations and the laws in my country, which is here in Zimbabwe, where I'm based. And you'll see there in the photos at the bottom, that's myself with the Civil Aviation Authority, as well as the Minister of Transport, the Deputy Minister of Transport at the time, back in 2018, when we established regulations in our country. On the bottom left, you'll see that's actually a demonstration we're doing with the Minister of Agriculture back in 2019, when we were showing him what a crop spraying drone is and why we need to have that classified as agricultural equipment. I also am part and parcel of helping to develop standards across the African continent. I work hand in hand and have worked with the Civil Aviation Authority and training schools within Kenya, just to kind of help to establish standards for training within that space. I'm also heavily involved with some of the work that they do there. And we're looking at standardizing or creating standards across the African continent when it comes to actually defining what is a professional and what is a person who works within the space. Within my exploits as well, I'm privileged to have also been part and parcel of helping to inform policy. And this is at a conference held by the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization, in October last year in Italy, where we're looking at how to actually set up training standards when it comes to using drones for sustainable agriculture mechanization. These are some of the things that I'm involved with as a professional within my space, and that's me as an individual. The organization I represent is Precision Aerial Group, which you've heard about already. And within the group, we have a number of different organizations. And in particular today, I'll zero in on precision drone training, because we're going to look at the steps that are needed for you to become a drone professional. Okay, so precision drone training is essentially a Civil Aviation Authority certified training school that is certified to provide training programs that help to equip prospective pilots or drone pilots who want to get into the industry, want to get into the profession, and we equip them and train them from a point of zero knowledge or limited knowledge to get them to a point of actually becoming professionals. The uniqueness, I think, of our training school is that we're one of the first schools within the African continent to have both local certification and international certification through our partnership with the Flying Labs and other ancillary partners. So our training school encompasses both local requirements for the Civil Aviation Authority, and I'll explain to you a bit later why I keep mentioning the Civil Aviation Authority, because that's an important component when it comes to actually making sure that you're compliant when it comes to regulations. So we both provide both regulatory and operational compliance training. And looking at that, our ethos is really around training professionals for the future of work. That's our mission. That's our goal. Ultimately, is to help people who want to do their work faster, safer, more efficiently, leveraging off technology such as drones. We also have Precision Drone Training Services, Precision Drone Services, our commercial entity where we provide different services. This is where we provide a variety of different services, particularly for agriculture. Agriculture is our mainstay, and I'll share with you during this presentation some of the work that we're doing within that space. These are some of the tools that we use when it comes to our services for agriculture, and I'll also share with you this a bit more later. But added to that, as Precision Aerial, the commercial entity, we are involved in, as well as mining services, we're involved in security services. We also recently started providing services within the entertainment space, and we did the very first drone light show in our country here in Zimbabwe that we did last year in September, and we're looking forward to doing another drone light show very soon. So a drone light show is basically having different drones that have LED lights underneath them, and they create all these different images and patterns and logos. Very entertaining, and something that is really taken off in the entertainment space. So this is something that we did locally, and it's part and parcel of what we do. But only because we are established as professionals are we able to do this kind of work. Another organization that I represent within our group is Zimbabwe Flying Labs, and this is an international organization that we're affiliated with, and we are present in now over 45 countries around the world, and we work to actually deliver on the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And one of them, obviously, is sustainable agriculture. which we will talk about. And that is to make sure that we deal with hunger and make sure that there's zero hunger, make sure that we're boosting food security. We look at that through our different programs, and we have a number of different programs as the Flying Labs Network. And this is part of the team that oversees the Flying Labs Network. Now, that's enough in terms of the introduction and overview. What I want to now share with you is a little bit about what does it take. And one of the first things we look at is any person who is looking at getting into the drone profession has effectively entered the aviation industry. So often when we start our trainings, our initial trainings, we always welcome our students by saying, welcome to the wonderful world of aviation, okay? A drone or a remotely piloted aircraft falls under the unmanned aviation sector, okay? It's part and parcel of aviation, and that's why even the standards around training are so important and so critical that we have them defined the way they are. That is also why process is very, very important. Procedure is very, very important. Paperwork is very, very important when it comes to anyone who wants to operate within the drone space. It's not just about flying the drone and having a good time with the actual application of the drone. It's also about process and procedure. Now, the aviation industry is a highly regulated industry, okay? It is defined in terms of the standards that a person who's operating the space must follow. And where it's very strict around the different structure of what needs to be done for someone to be able to be a user of the airspace. Why? Because of the risk associated with operating the airspace. As you will know, as a person who, and one of you who are actually taking on this program, there are rules when it comes to different forms of transportation, different spaces, and that kind of thing, right? Those of you who either use public transportation or have your own vehicle or even walk or cycle, you will understand that there are rules of the road, okay? When it comes to rules of the road, right, we have traffic lights. These traffic lights help to guide us to say when should a vehicle go, when should a vehicle stop, and that kind of thing. We have markings on the road, we have giveaway signs, we have stop signs, okay? Those are all rules of the road. Now, when it comes to using the airspace, we have what we call rules of the air, okay? So when it comes to rules of the air, it is necessary that anyone who wants to use an aircraft or anything that is operating in the airspace must be trained and must learn the rules of the air to ensure that we avoid collision, we avoid incidences, and we can use the airspace in a safe and responsible manner. So where does it start off with? It starts off with the remote pilot license. The remote pilot license is the initial training course that any person who wants to become a professional has to take. Along that journey, there are certain milestones and markers that you must fulfill for you to become or to be defined as a professional, okay? The term remote pilot license is interchangeable. In other countries, it's known as a remote pilot certificate. In other countries, they have different definitions of it. But in particular, we're talking about the initial license that is required to meet the regulatory standard. When we say regulatory standard, the regulatory standard is defined by your local civil aviation authority. Now, in your country, the Civil Aviation Authority would ordinarily fall under the Ministry of Transportation, okay? And it is governed and regulated as such. Now, the Civil Aviation Authority is the regulator, normally is the regulator of the industry. So they actually define what are the minimum standards required for anyone who wants to operate in the airspace. So often the programs that are regulatory, like the remote pilot license, focus on rules and regulations. They focus on standards and process for anyone who wants to operate in the space. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delve into each one of these different programs so that you can see a little bit of what it takes to actually gain the knowledge and skills to become a professional. Okay, so starting off with the remote pilot license, you would then move from there. Once you've successfully completed that, you would move on to what we call an advanced industry-specific training course or program. Now, this would look specifically at a sector and say, right, you want to operate drones in agriculture. So all of you here who are undertaking this program under Precision Field Academy are looking at how can I leverage this technology to use it when it comes to agriculture. That is a separate program and course and different to what you'd learn in the remote pilot license. Okay. Once you have done that sector-specific training course on agriculture, and within agriculture, you can learn about drones that are used for mapping and data processing, for example, and drones that are used for crop protection, where spraying or spreading of different fertilizers or seeds. Okay. Once you've learned that, it is then important and necessary for you to get what's known as a rating. Okay. And the ratings are something we'll look at in more detail as I go through this presentation. Lastly, we'll look at what is continuous professional development that is then establishes what is a drone profession. So let's get right into it. Let's first look at the knowledge and skills of a drone professional. For someone to be defined as a drone professional or a remote piloted aircraft professional, they must possess knowledge and skills on the following. Number one, they must understand regulations, compliance, and ethics. Okay? When it comes to regulations, each country, each state has regulations that are defined around the use of drones. Not all countries around the world, and particularly in Africa, have established rules and regulations yet. That is a framework that is necessary for the safe and responsible operation of drones within a country. So when it comes to regulations and compliance, for you to be compliant, you must understand the standards and the rules around what is needed for an operator of drones. Then there's the aspect of ethics, right? What is the ethical approach? There are certain things that are not defined in the regulations that you as an individual must look at. We look at things like privacy and people's rights. Oftentimes you hear about drones being used or going into private property or being used as a tool to spy on people, right? What is the ethical approach? And you can't define yourself as a professional if you don't have ethics, okay? So ethics are a very important aspect of being a professional. Then there's also the aspect of drone operations development, okay? Developing the operations, developing the standards, or what we call standard operating procedures. A drone professional must know how to develop their operations framework within their organization, okay? So this looks at defining what is it that we're going to do? How are we going to ensure that we have a reliable method to operate drones? How are we going to avoid incidences? How are we going to make sure that we preserve our data and information? How do we record the data that we're gathering when we're actually operating drones? How do we record our flights and our flight times? All of that is part and parcel of the drone operations development. Then there's the safety management system design. A professional must also be able to design a safety management system that ensures that the drones are being operated in a safe and responsible manner. We'll look at that in more detail. Then there's the sector-specific training. A professional cannot be a professional if they only know the regulatory standards. They must have also training in a specific sector. They must know how to apply drones in a specific use case for you to be defined as a professional in that space. Then there's also a requirement for you to have the knowledge and the skill on drone maintenance. How do we maintain our drones? It's not to say that you must be able to repair drones, but you must have an understanding of what's required. Lastly, we'll look at the internal drone use policy. A professional must be able to determine what is the internal policy when it comes to operating drones within our organization. Who is allowed to use the drone? What type of drones do we have? Where do we keep them? And so, right? So we'll go forth and we'll look at that. Now, what we're going to look at is we're going to look at the personnel training and the organizational setup. Those are two different areas that we're going to have to define when it comes to becoming a professional. Let's start off with the training. And before we look at the training, I want to look at the key phases in the drone industry. One of them is the regulatory framework. So the regulatory framework is important because it helps us to define what is it that we're working with. Are drones allowed? Are we allowed to even operate drones within our country or not? Okay. Once we have that, then we develop the business use case. This is when you have different people who get involved in the industry and start to define what are the different things we want to do. And in particular here, we're focusing on industry specialists, okay? Like Precision Field Academy and other related organizations like our organization. We are industry specialists. but we take all of what we do defined by the regulatory framework. If we're not allowed to operate drones for agriculture, for example, then we have no business use case. It makes it difficult for anyone to have a career or develop a career within the space without that regulatory framework. Once we have that, we have the private sector development and entrepreneurs who take on that role and who drive things forward. Then we define an industry by forming industry bodies. Now, these could be your professional bodies themselves. So you have a drone pilot network or drone pilot or commercial drone pilot users. You also have training organizations that help to define an industry. Then we have the ecosystem activation, where now we can develop public awareness, engage the public, develop a deeper understanding of the industry, make sure that we can actually help in a local context, work with our communities, right? And then also be able to get funding within the actual industry itself. So these are some of the key phases in defining and developing a drone industry, okay? So you as a professional also need to understand how this operates and all the different sectors and the pillars that are used to define an industry. Also, some interesting information for you as we dive into this is looking at the drone market size and forecast for all of you who are looking at getting into this space. Of interest is a lot of people are very interested in services, okay, right? Very, very interested in services. And that is something that is an area where people are looking at, one, getting the necessary skill set, the licensing to operate as, for example, an agriculture drone pilot to provide a particular service. Other areas within the industry include hardware and software. Hardware are the drone manufacturers, people who are actually developing drones. Software are the people who are organizations that are defining and developing software for the industry. And of interest for me is for you to look at the particular opportunities that exist. For all intents and purposes, it's good to want to provide a service, but it's equally good to look at where the opportunities lie. And ultimately, for our counterparts, especially across the continent of Africa, we need to also look at software development and looking at developing software programs that help to complement the industry. If we're looking at agriculture, we're looking at developing software that helps us to analyze the data gathered by the drone, or that helps us to manage a fleet of aircraft, for example, or to log our different flights. In that space, you will find that you can be a professional who provides a software program for the entire industry, not necessarily a pilot who flies the drones themselves. Those are also opportunities you can look at. But for now, for today, we're going to focus on what is it that you need to become a professional and what are the training programs you need to take and what is the knowledge you need to have. So to start us off, we're going to look at the types of training. As I mentioned, you have different types of training. Number one is the regulatory compliance. Under that, we have things like the RPL, the BV loss, and the fixed wing. These are training programs defined by the regulator, which is the Civil Aviation Authority, to say, right, for anyone who wants to operate different types of drones, you've got to have understanding of the regulatory basis. So we have within that the remote pilot license, the BV loss, which we look at, as well as fixed wing. Then we have the operational training. So yes, you've got the regulatory license, but you now need to understand the industry-specific focus. In that, we have the industry-specific training, as well as fixed wing or VTOL training, or hybrid. Then we have type-specific. So we have aircraft-specific training. As you will know, the drone industry is advancing, and drones are becoming more sophisticated as they go. So when a new drone comes out, one of the things we provide is aircraft-specific training on that particular model of drone to help organizations and individuals to quickly assimilate information and become proficient on that particular type of drone. And we'll look at that in detail just now. Let's start off with the remote pilot license, okay? So if you're interested in actually getting into the industry, or maybe you already have your remote pilot license, this is a starting point. And the remote pilot license is really the foundational course required for anyone who wants to be a professional within the space. Now, what's involved within this space? Now, for us, I've taken this based off of our regulations, as well as regulations within South Africa, as well as Zambia and Kenya. So these are the basic or general standards around what is the process to actually become or obtain a remote pilot license and to be defined as a drone pilot. Okay, so you have what is the theory training as well as the practical training. According to our regulations, for someone to actually take this course, they have to be a minimum of 18 years of age. Okay, other countries are looking at reducing that to maybe 16 years of age, but generally 18 years of age is the minimum standard. Okay, then what is required is English language proficiency, and in our country, using the international or GCSE, our minimum is an O-level certificate or ordinary level certification is the minimum requirement for English language or to prove that you have English language proficiency. Then you're required to have a class 4 medical certificate. There are different classes of medical certificates, and our requirement locally is class 4. In other countries like South Africa, their minimum class requirement is a class 3 medical certificate. Now, a class 4 medical certificate is basically a medical check that has to be done to check on whether you are fit and healthy enough to actually take on this course and to then become a pilot. Now, the medical certificate will normally cover general kind of health, and then looks specifically at your eyesight and your general health condition. Okay. Then we have the actual training. So theory training for us normally is run over a 4-day period. We do 4 days of theoretical training, then 1-day theory exam. We will give, and we often give our students time for them to practice and to study before they do the theory exam. Only after you have passed your theory exam are you allowed to move on to the practical training. Now, the practical training is done at our airfield, where we do 4 days of practical flight training on the regulatory or the actual specified training aircraft. So the civil aviation defines what is the training aircraft that is used for training. And I'll get into that just now, and I'll show you which is the training aircraft that is used for the remote pilot license in our country and in many other countries. Then we have, in the process of practical training, we have what is known as the LOR, or letter of recommendation, and that is a 1-day training course, 1-day exercise that is done by the chief flight instructor to check and test that the student is ready to take on the skills test. The final stage is the skills test. Now, the skills test is done by the Civil Aviation Authority examiner or their designated examiner. I think I mentioned before that I'm currently in the process of getting my certification as a designated examiner, but I don't work for the Civil Aviation Authority. So the Civil Aviation Authority can designate industry professionals to also examine students on their behalf and thereby issue the licenses that are required. So the skills test is done by the Civil Aviation Authority examiner, and this is also a 1-day exercise where the student is required to go through specific exercises and prove that they're able to do both practical and apply the theory knowledge required. So for our theory training, we have theory training that we run. So we run theoretical training classes every single month at our training school. And we run these courses once a month. It runs for 1 week. And we provide this training in a comfortable setting that allows, enables learning to take place. We have instructors who are professionals within their own right, who then deliver the training. Part of the theory course content, these are some of the modules that we teach, not necessarily all of them, but we often teach an introduction to drones. Within the introduction to drones, that is when we define the history of drones. When did drones start? We also look at the global drone market and drone industry, and we look specifically at how the industry is developing across Africa. We look at how regulations also were defined. We look also at who are the manufacturers of drones, who are the software developers of drones. We also look at the framework required to develop the industry. So that's our introduction to drones. We then have module 2, which is APA as technical. This looks at the technical, or APA as technical in general. This looks at the structure of a remote piloted aircraft. And in particular, we look at multi-rotor, first and foremost. So this whole course is really on multi-rotor aircraft initially, before we then move on to the fixed wing. After that, we have air regulations. This defines, as I've already been mentioning, the regulations and the standards required. We also look at aerodynamics. So aerodynamics is a course or module that's taken from manned aviation and looks at how an aircraft moves, how it generates lift, and how it's able to stay in the air, okay? Then we also have navigation, and this is general flight navigation. How do you navigate? How do you move from point A to point B with your aircraft and your drone? And how do you use it to gather data or information, videos, photos, whatever it is? Then we also look at meteorology, which looks at weather conditions. We also then look at human factors, and we look at the factors affecting the performance of pilots. So we look at the importance of pilots getting enough sleep, pilots having eaten, pilots making sure that they are in a good, fit condition to operate a drone, okay? Which is important. Then we look at flight operations and planning, and that looks also at defining what are the steps that a pilot should take when they're planning to actually carry out a flight in a particular place. This includes getting airspace clearances, okay? So defining also the different airspaces and the clearances required. For example, there are within every country areas that are defined as restricted areas or prohibited areas or danger areas. So how do you go about getting permission to operate your drone within that particular space? So that's what we look at flight operations and planning. How do you plan your missions and your flight? How do you ensure that you have checklists that you work with to make sure that you don't forget any piece of equipment, to make sure that you do your pre-flight checks correctly, to make sure that after you've done your flight, how do you ensure that general maintenance is taking place? So that's what we define when we look at flight operations and planning. Then we have another module, which is use case applications. This looks at the different uses of drones across different industries. So we delve a little bit into how drones are used across different industries. And this defines our theory course content. And then an examination is written on these modules. And only after you've completed and passed this can you move on to the next stage, which is our practical flight training. Now, practical flight training takes place at an airfield. You can see it's in an open space where we're able to, or where we've designated by the Civil Aviation Authority. We have our own airfield where we conduct flight training. And this is where students now are taken through different training exercises on the multi-rotor aircraft with an instructor who is certified to train on that. This training takes place over a couple of days and includes the basics. So we cover the basics of how to actually control an aircraft, how to do emergency procedures in the event of an incident or potential collision, how to do emergency maneuvers or tactical maneuvers to avoid collision. We also do basic exercises as defined by the Civil Aviation Authority, which we call box exercises. And we train our student pilots on how to set up the aircraft, how to do pre-flight checks, how to operate the aircraft, and how to do post-flight checks after the flight. Okay, so that defines what takes place when we're going through practical training. Then we also have within that process, we have the letter of recommendation and skills test, which is then done by our chief flight instructor. So the chief flight instructor will do a mock test and check if the student is ready to actually take on the skills test. Once they are ready, then the skills test will take place with the Civil Aviation Authority examiner. And once that is successfully completed, then we have the happy new drone pilots who will have completed their training course and now able to begin to operate under the defined parameters of that particular license. So that defines the first part, which is our remote pilot license, which would be stage 1. Let's move quickly to our fixed wing license as well. This is often under stage 3, and normally under stage 3. But I've decided to show this first to show you the similarities between the remote pilot license as well as the fixed wing license. So in particular, when we're looking at this, the fixed wing, right? The process of getting your fixed wing license is similar to the RPL. The prerequisite, however, is that you must have a valid remote pilot license. So you must have successfully completed and obtained a license for your remote pilot license for you to then enter the course or the program for the fixed wing. Now, the training is defined similar to the remote pilot license, except that because you've done modules like aerodynamics in your remote pilot license, you're not required to take that course again. You already have that course within your remote pilot license. So the training within that space takes place over 2 days. So theoretical training is takes place over 2 days with then 1 day theory examination. We then move over on to what we call simulator training or computer-based training. This is done over about 8 days, where a student will actually have a simulator. So they will be in front of a computer with a remote controller, and they will be in a simulated kind of space, and they will then do the training on that particular aircraft before they can move on to the practical flying. Now that simulator test was done over 1 day, and it's important that that simulator test is done within that time. So with that now, we have, after the simulator test, we have practical training. So practical training is done over 5 days, and that practical training is done with a particular emphasis on a particular type of aircraft, which is the fixed wing. That's done over 5 days, followed by the letter of recommendation, as well as the skills test with the Civil Aviation Authority examiner. So that is part and parcel of what you would need for you to do the fixed wing training program and training course. Let me move on quickly now to show you what the BV loss or beyond visual line of sight training looks like. Again, it's similar to your remote pilot license as well as your fixed wing training. So it's important that within that space, you also have, again, the remote pilot license. So the remote pilot license is important for you to have as the starting point for you to then be able to move on to do the actual beyond visual line of sight training. Okay, right. Now, looking at BV loss, it follows again the same thing that we're looking at, which is you've got the theoretical training, simulator training, then the practical training. The difference though is that you have simulator training, which is done over 3 days, okay? Then you also have practical training, which is done over 1 day. That 1 day training on the BV loss is because the main focus of BV loss is actually specifically on the simulator. So what we're doing now when we're doing the practical training for BV loss is wanting to see, right? Is wanting to actually see how the BV loss actually works in the field. So what you'll find from school to school, depending on the different type of school, right? During the different type of school, some schools only end at the simulator training for BV loss. What we've defined is that it's important that we have the full scope, right? Which is the theory, the simulator, and then the practical training taking place. So the beyond visual line of sight is actually a rating. So that's a rating that actually takes place. And that's part and parcel of what you would actually see. So you can actually see there, you've got the aircraft and you have what's called a ground control station, which is different to actually you using a remote controller when you're actually operating. Then we move on to our advanced industry specific training courses. Now these advanced industry specific training courses include a variety of different courses. So that's drones for disaster risk reduction. We also have drones for agriculture courses, and we have the different type of courses within that space. So one of the things that we're going to look at and define here as well is what are those advanced industry specific courses for, and how do they help us as drone professionals? Now, first, let's look at the regulatory versus type specific. So this is an example of the regulatory versus type specific. You have on the left there the DJI Phantom 4. So the DJI Phantom 4 is the training aircraft that is approved by the Civil Aviation Authority for prospective pilots, for them to be able to train on how to actually operate drones. Okay. Now, in particular, you have the DJI Phantom 4. That's for training. Now, once you are trained on that, the DJI Phantom 4 has a specific model that is useful for specific things. On the right, you have the DJI Matrice 30T. Okay. All right. So this is the M30T on the right. So one of the things we've seen clearly is that it's difficult for you to have someone who's trained on the Phantom 4, right, as a training aircraft, but in reality, when they go back to their work or their job, they're planning to use the DJI Matrice 30T, right, because the drones are quite different. The way they operate is very different. The sensors that are used, they're very different. So to take someone who's done the Phantom 4 and move them to the Matrice 30, there needs to be training in between there. So that's where we now do the type-specific training for multi-rotor. Again, another example is the regulatory versus type-specific for fixed wing. On the left, you have a training aircraft used for fixed wing called the Discovery ST. That's the approved aircraft by the Civil Aviation Authority. Now, this aircraft doesn't have what we call a flight controller. It doesn't have any sensors. It's basically like a model aircraft or a toy aircraft. That's what's used for training. So that's what you will train on. But in reality, when you now are in the field, you most likely will use like the Foxtech ADK 250, which is a vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, or VTOL, as we call it. This Foxtech has endurance of probably about 4 hours in total. It has different sensors that you can put on. Now, for you to move from flying that toy aircraft to also then be able to operate the Foxtech, which uses a ground control station, you need to be trained. And that's why we have now the sector-specific or the industry-specific training to help pilots be able to actually be able to use the drones that they're going to use on a day-to-day basis from that perspective. Okay. Right. Now we're looking at drones for agriculture. So what I want to look at is, if you are looking at becoming a professional or someone who uses drones for agriculture, what is it that you need to take? What are the courses that you would need to actually take for you to be defined or to be defined as a professional? Okay. Now, there you'll see a picture of part of our team. And this is one of the fields where we actually are, provide spraying to one of our clients. And that particular drone or aircraft, there is the DJI Agris T30. Okay, one of the drones that are used for spraying as well as for spreading fertilizer. Now, for you to be able to use that drone, you can't go from having your remote pilot license and go straight to just now starting to fly this drone. You have to go through the process like we defined when it comes to becoming a drone professional. Okay. Now, particularly with these type of drones, the drones fit into a scope, which is the smart farming applications. Okay. So the training course that you would undertake when it comes to drones for agriculture would help you to define what are the different use cases for drones within the agriculture space and how do drones complement other technology tools within the space. Use case applications for drones in agriculture, of which you guys will already know most of this information, is for pesticide spraying, fertilizer spreading, weed control, pest control, irrigation planning, crop spraying, etc. etc. Okay. In particular, also drones in agriculture are used to gather information or data the crop and farms. So you've got your near NDVI or orthomosaics or prescription maps or surface models. And these are some of the things that you need to learn, which you will not get within your remote pilot license or the regulatory license. Okay. Now what I want to move on to is to show you some of the different flight parameters to help you to define the different licenses. Okay. So the remote pilot license, for all intents and purposes, regardless of whether you do it in Zimbabwe or do it in South Africa or Kenya or even anywhere else in any other country, right? The remote pilot license allows pilots to operate within visual line of sight. We call that VLOS, okay? And you'll see there that they are defined parameters. And this refers to the operation of drones below 400 feet or 120 meters. 400 feet is equivalent to 120 meters, above ground level, and at a distance not exceeding 500 meters. Okay. So when you get your initial remote pilot license, you are only permitted to operate drones up to a limit of 500 meters laterally and 120 meters or 400 feet vertically. Okay. That is because the type of aircraft that you're rated on your license is only to operate within visual line of sight. In other words, you must maintain eyesight on the aircraft at all times. We then have what's known as extended visual line of sight. Okay. Now, this extended visual line of sight helps us to actually move beyond 500 meters by establishing an observer at the 500 meter mark to extend the visual range of the pilot to a distance not exceeding 1,000 meters or 1 kilometer. All right. So this is what we would define as EVLOS. We then have restricted visual line of sight, or RVLOS, and lastly, we have BVLOS. So BVLOS, which is a desirable rating to have. BVLOS means an operation or a drone operation in which the remote pilot cannot maintain unaided direct visual contact with aircraft. Okay? And essentially what it means is the pilot is now rated to be able to fly drones over a long distance. Okay? So you do not get that permission from your civil aviation authority from the get-go. For you to fly drones beyond your visual line of sight or beyond a kilometer or beyond 500 meters, you need to get what is known beyond visual line of sight as beyond visual line of sight. This is training, this training that I mentioned before, which is a lot more simulator-based, that allows you and teaches you and trains you on how to actually operate drones within that particular context, beyond where you can see, and also in conditions, whether it's night operations. If you want to fly your drone at night, for example, you would need to get your BVLOS rating. If you want to fly your drone in poor weather conditions, as you will know, some drones like the Matrice 30T that I just showed you can be operated when it's raining. But to do that, you've got to learn and be trained on how to operate drones in poor weather conditions. That you will learn in the BVLOS rating when you take on that program in that course. Okay. Now, what I want to move on to is the stage 4, which is your continuous professional development. So for those who are saying, right, I've taken all the courses, I've taken the remote pilot license, I've taken the advanced industry specific course on agriculture, for example, what more do I need to do? Now, there's certain things that you as a professional must be aware of that will help you to maintain your professional status, okay? These are the key things that you need to be able to do to stay up to date. Number one, you must take additional courses. One of the things that we always define and say, one of the worst things, the worst thing that you can do as a drone pilot is to only take the remote pilot license level 1 and stop there. You must take additional courses. You must take on different ratings. You must advance your skills if you want to be defined as a professional. Also, added to that, one of the things we also encourage is read books and sign up for industry newsletters. I mentioned before already some of the books that I co-authored. Femi has also co-authored. Other professionals co-authored. Read those books. Sign up for newsletters. Make sure that you are up to date with what's happening within the drone industry, from a local context in your country to a regional context across the continent and to a global context. Also, number 3, subscribe to YouTube channels of drone influencers. And as I shared already, I'm a YouTuber, so make sure you sign up and subscribe to my channel, as well as obviously other drone influencers. Attend conferences, workshops, and webinars. So this program that you're undertaking with Precision Field Academy is one of the ways that you can actually maintain your status as a professional, because there's always something new for you to learn that you can actually take on when you take on workshops, webinars, and conferences. Join drone pilot forums and networks. So join a community. I know that that the Precision Field Academy team has a community that they're developing for you to be able to be a part and parcel of even after this program, so that you can continue to learn and grow within this space. Then number 6 there, follow industry leaders on social media on different platforms, be it on LinkedIn and that kind of thing. Then lastly, the most important aspect of you becoming a professional is for you to consistently and constantly practice. And I'll come back to that just now. So one of the courses here that we are looking at to help you guys to become a professional within this space is a course that we designed and developed and is currently being endorsed internationally as a course that is defining the framework. This is a course similar to what Precision Field Academy has. So you can take the Precision Field Academy course on aerial crop protection. This equips you with the skills and is designed to equip drone pilots with the skills and competence to operate crop spraying drones effectively and confidently. You can only do this after you've gotten your remote pilot license as well as your BVLOS rating, okay? Right? We also have other courses that you can take that can help, like for example, the cinematography course. This helps you, let's say for you, if you want to learn how to take nice photos and videos, even of your work within the agriculture space, this is one of the courses that we have. We also have another course which is defined for organizations. And this is a course that is an introduction to drones for organizations and businesses. One of the things that we've learned is that it's important to help organizations to understand the return on investment. And why should an organization invest in drones? Why should an organization invest in training you to become a professional? What can the organization derive in terms of value? And we have a course designed specifically for executives and managers for this. And this is what we have also as part and parcel of our training. As I mentioned, you want to read books. This is one or some of the books that you can read. Available now is Drone Professional 3 as well as Drone Professional 4. Those books are also available that you can also get to read up on to become a professional. Attending conferences and workshops. As I mentioned already, so these are some of the conferences. We have a particular conference that we developed here in Zimbabwe, and I know Femi is working on also he's setting up a conference, and you have conferences as well within Nigeria, within other countries as well for this. So we actually established the Zimbabwe International Drone Conference to help to actually bring together the community. And what we do at the conferences is we have the Civil Aviation Authority, which is a key part, obviously, of the industry. They are actually part and parcel of the conference. They help to actually bring the industry together to kind of shape the future of the industry. So this is a platform that allows users of the technology, professionals within the space to interact with the civil aviation, interact with each other, to test and demonstrate. We do demonstrations as well during our conferences. And this is some of the highlights from our conference that we had I think about 2 years ago when we had this particular conference. So make sure you attend. If you have any opportunities to attend conferences, make sure that you invest, pay for yourself to attend those, because that's where you also see opportunities. That's where you interact with different players within the industry. That's when you have a chance to actually connect with other people within that space. So that is an area that I would definitely encourage you to say, make sure that you go and attend these events. This is also an event that we hosted in Zambia end of last year. This brought together professionals within the professionals or leaders who are leading organizations or drone companies within the Southern African region. And it's part and parcel of what we need to do. We need to constantly be looking at how can we help and support each other as professionals? How do we help each other to advance the industry? How do we help to advance ourselves as professionals within the space? So make sure that you're involved within these spaces. Make sure that you are positioning yourself to also contribute towards the development of the industry. That is how we define you as a professional. Also, as I mentioned before, you can get drone industry reports. There are different organizations that actually develop reports that are easily accessible for you to learn more about what's happening within the drone space across the board, both in Africa or across the African continent and in the global context. So make sure you connect with Precision Field Academy. I'm sure they also have access to reports that you can then see and learn from and that kind of thing. Then lastly, what I have to define as being the most important is practice, practice, practice. I can't emphasize this enough. For you to consider yourself a professional, the most important thing is to start with the remote pilot license. gain the necessary training and the skills, and grow from there. So the practice aspect is such that the licenses that we get, oftentimes, if you look at the remote pilot license, those licenses are only valid for 2 years. Then you have to renew your license. Now, to get to a point of renewing your license, you have to have been flying, and you've got to constantly be flying for you to be able to actually maintain your status. One of the things we also say to our students and prospective drone pilots is the thing about the drone pilot certification and the skill. It's a skill that is a use it or lose it. And I'll say it again. You either use it or lose it. And what do I mean by that? Is if you take the course and you become a drone pilot, but you don't actually fly, or you spend 3, 4, 5 months not flying a drone, then you are most likely going to forget and not be able to apply the things that you've learned. So it's important that you're consistent. It's important that you continue to fly. It's important that you have access to a drone and that you're constantly flying. We set a parameter and a standard to say you've got to fly at least a minimum of 2 hours a week for you to do and maintain your currency as a pilot, okay? So that's one of the things that we encourage to say, right, don't be a person who just acquires these licenses and doesn't practice. Put yourself in spaces, volunteer if you have to. Go and connect yourself to organizations or training schools and say, look, can I volunteer just to get some practice in, all right? Can I come and support or work with in training school? Training school is a good opportunity and a space for you to get more flight time. And make sure you record your flight hours. Make sure you have a logbook that you have that helps you to maintain your different flight hours. One of the things that is important for a logbook, and it's a requirement for you as a pilot to have a logbook, is for you to determine the difference between someone who is a professional, someone who has years of experience. We look at the logbook. We look at how many hours have you recorded. We look at how many types of aircraft you have experience on, okay? So it's not enough to waive your license or to have this or pursue these different licenses without being able to show evidence that you've actually performed within the space and that you have actually recorded a number of hours within that space, okay? When employers or people who are looking at giving you opportunities look at it, they will look and say, yes, you have a license, but how many hours of experience do you have flying a particular aircraft? Or how many hours do you have in general? So I can't emphasize enough the need to practice, practice, practice. You must keep flying, you must keep growing, you must keep advancing if you want to define yourself as a professional within this space. So I'm gonna stop here and then open it up. I'm not sure if we're opening up to questions, but I'm happy to take any questions at this stage and also hand it back to the organizers, Femi and the team at Precision Field Academy. These are my contact details that I'm leaving here. My pseudonym is the African Drone Professional, and you can find me particularly on LinkedIn as my name, Tawanda Chihambakwe. That is my contact number, my WhatsApp number. I'm also on Instagram as well as YouTube as the African Drone Professional. So thank you for being part and parcel of this program. I'll now hand over to the organizers as well as open up for any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Tawanda. We are actually, grateful for the insights which you have shared today. It was actually very, very smooth and great. I mean, I have a lot of comments here saying good lectures. To be a drone professional, we need to pay our props, and start UAV, and we have a couple of people joining on LinkedIn and also on YouTube. So guys, one of our missions is to have to connect you with industry leaders, thought leaders, and professionals. So do well to go on LinkedIn, go on Instagram, YouTube. Also find the African Drone Professional. Find Tawanda Chihambakwe. You'll not actually regret following. Trying to scan for questions. I think you've actually given us more than a milestone too. And I have a lot of comments here saying nice presentation. We also have folks joining from Kenya, from many other parts of African region. Not much questions. Guys, if you have questions, let's just give some minutes to actually see we have questions. Guys, if you have questions for Tawanda, please do well to ask away. It's actually time for you to actually ask your question, particularly. So, but if in while we're actually waiting for your question, I'm looking in the comment section now. While we're waiting for your question, so I wonder, I would like to actually have to clarify why again, why do we need all of this specific drone training? I mean, industry specific training. Why do we need to actually? I know how to actually take off. You know, somebody will say, I know how to actually take off drone and maneuver. You know, but why industry specific? Why aircraft specific training? And maybe a reason why we need to actually have continuous professional development as professionals. I want to be professional.
Okay, thank you for that question. And one of the things that I would like to do is give you an example, right? When it comes to defining the difference between your regulatory or the standard training courses, right? That is your remote pilot license. The remote pilot license is designed and has been designed by the Civil Aviation Authority. And it's a syllabus that's set out to say, right, we want to create a standard for anyone who wants to operate drones. So here's the drone training aircraft that everyone who wants to operate a drone, regardless of what the use case is, everyone must be trained on this particular type. Okay, right? That particular type may be very and completely different to what you're going to actually use in the field on a day-to-day basis. In particular, I'll give an example: the DJI Phantom 4 versus the Agras T40. Okay, right? Now the DJI Phantom 4 weighs a total of 1.3 kgs, whereas the Agras T40 with maximum takeoff weight with maybe a full load of liquid can weigh about 78 kgs, right? So we're saying 1 kg and 78 kg. The Phantom 4 has an RGB sensor. The Agras T40 is not about the sensor, right? It has a camera just for navigation, but it's equipped with these massive rotors, but it has a spraying system, okay, to spray the chemicals. It also has a spreading system. Right? So for you to go from Phantom 4 to then be able to then use this, there's a learning curve. And it's important that you actually learn how to use it properly. What we want to avoid is people trying to figure it out, because then you aren't able to maximize on it. Also, we are saying we're not just looking for pilots. We want to be professionals. Okay, so a professional understands that in more often than not, it's not necessarily about the drone. It's often about what it can do, and we look at data, we look at mapping, and when we're looking at things like spraying, that kind of thing, what we're interested in is deriving value to the farmer. What the farmer wants is he wants to understand things like chemical ratios. How much chemical should he put on his crop? Okay, how much water is required? He wants to know, okay, what's the coverage? All right. So it's important that you have the understanding of the industry specific focus and what the drone should be doing and how it should be performing, not just being able to make it fly. Okay. And I think my last point on this one is I want to just show you something. I'm going to just quickly, I want to show you, for example, one of the things that we teach pilots to understand beyond the flying. So beyond the flying, one of the things we're teaching pilots in our training program, I'm just going to share my screen quickly for those who are still on the call. I want to show you some of the parameters that we capture in terms of data. Okay, and this is part of what we teach when we look at delivering on this course. So here, let me show you this. Okay, so if you look at this, you'll be able to see here, okay, that one of the things that we're doing, we're not just going out there and spraying. We're actually gathering data that helps us develop models for our farmers. And you can see that as the farm name, the location, the chemicals applied, the chemical rate per hectare, the volume of water used, the spraying height, etc., 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 right? The root spacing, the area that sprayed, how long it took, and then who did it, right? So what this helps us to do now as professionals is we now are able to help inform inform our farmers, right? And help them to determine, right, how much they can actually save on their chemicals, how much they will actually need for planning purposes going forward. You see what I'm saying? That's what a professional does. A professional doesn't just arrive and fly. A professional helps and works with the farmer and helps them to actually save their chemicals, okay? Choose better options. It's not always that the drone is going to be the best option and solution, but you need the data. So you've got to develop models as well to say, okay, for this particular crop, this is the best chemical to use. This is the best volume. This is, that kind of thing. These are the things that I'm saying now. You will not get that in the basic training. You need the industry-specific training.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tawanda. It's actually very important for us to, receive industry-specific training, aircraft-specific training, from the functionality perspective, or also from the safety perspective. The responsibility also attached to the use of these aircraft or the objectives of delivering, particularly. You actually mentioned something even beyond just flying the drone, talking about chemical application, that might actually be, you might need the understanding about the chemical application, the pesticide application technology, how does it work, and how can you actually use it to deliver solutions and the value to which the farmer actually requests for. Or if you are actually using those in construction industry, how can you actually bring this maps, the 3D models to actually bring value to the owner of the project or the project manager, and so that they can be able to take informed decision. It actually goes beyond just taking off and actually, maneuvering and landing. It's more about understanding how to use the drone to actually deliver value. And more particularly, the expectations that actually come with you flying the drone, ethics, safety, and legal responsibilities that come with it. It's very, very important, and this is what defines a drone professional. And I think we have some questions, but before I actually go to the question, there is, I think part of being a drone professional is also to be a consultant. Somebody would like to actually, I think, can you actually make comments on becoming a drone consultant, or who are drone consultants and what do they do? I would like to actually hear from you.
Yeah, so thank you for that. So just quickly, oftentimes we first look at you as a pilot, getting the necessary training, skill set, advancing, taking up all these different courses, working within a particular sector or industry, right? Then developing the knowledge base around a particular sector and use case application, okay, right? Once you have experience within that space, so in other words, you have the licensing, you have the all the different advanced courses and the skill set, right? But you have the experience now as well operating in that space, okay? Then you're able to move to a place of being able to provide consultancy, okay? Right? So it's not enough to just have the knowledge and the skills and all these licenses. We need the experience. And for you to be a consultant, oftentimes we say you must consult, and consultants are normally good at consulting in a particular area, okay? Right? Where you can get a general consultant who will tell you, okay, drones are used for this, and different aspects. But if you want to drill down to value and someone to provide value, they are the ones who understand an industry. Oftentimes, for you to actually consult, you now need to actually even go beyond the drones themselves. When it comes to drone agriculture, we often look at, okay, you need to take a course on chemical applications, okay, in general, not just with drones. You must also take a course on potentially GIS and remote sensing, if you want to then be able to advance and provide real data in that space, you must take a course, right, that looks particularly at crops, maybe agronomy. You don't necessarily have to take a degree in it, but for you to be a consultant, you've got to now be able to pull from different sources, have the experience, have the knowledge. And then you can then begin to be able to consult and help others to set up and that kind of thing, because you've also had your own experiences.
Yeah, I think we have a question on that. What was happening is that why
Sorry, I missed that question. Okay.
I can go back
think,
to remember.
Yeah, I don't remember what ICJ is.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe he's referring to. I'm assuming he's referring to. Is it a part where he saw on my profile that said IT? Maybe.
All right.
Potentially.
We can actually move to the next question. Is there a platform where the public can view drone professionals in Africa? For example, Jungle Drone Consultants, Uganda. Is there? We'd like to know.
Yeah, so that's something that's currently in the works. I know people like the African Drone Forum are working on things like that as well, to set up a platform that you can then be able to see that. Right now, there isn't. Right now, I look for consultants. The best place to go is LinkedIn and look for search for drone consultant. And if someone can find that in their profile, but someone to report themselves as a consultant, then obviously they have the experience for it. And that's the best way to search. I would say is the best place right now, but there is no website I can refer to that has just like a full list of all the different people who are consultants.
All right. I think there's another question. Yeah. So it's updating your flight log. Okay, in case we don't have other drone models and specific certifications to fly specific drones, what can you advise to do?
Yeah, so I'm assuming it's in reference to the logbook itself. So what's important, right, is the number of hours, okay, that you have. That's a baseline, right? So get your hands on any drone, okay, right? Commercial grade, I would say. So I'm not saying get a hold of a little mini drones. That's nice, but get a hold of at least something similar to the training model, the Phantoms, or that kind of thing, or Mavics. Right? Minimum is hours, even if it's just practice, right? So at least have that to say, okay, flight practice or practice, etc. That's the minimum. We want you to know that you're flying. It means then that you are actually able to do something. Then the second level of that is what is it that you're actually doing? So you want to be able to then say, if I only have the Mavic or I only have the Phantom, do different things with it, okay, right? One day you can be doing cinematography, right? So using it to take photos and videos. The next day you're using it to map out a particular space. The next day it's for practice. So that on your logbook, we can see, all right, he has experience operating drones for mapping, for this. It might be on one particular drone only, right? But you have experience in different areas, different applications, not just flying for practice. But like I'm saying, minimum is you've got to at least have those flight hours. Okay.
All right. That would be all the questions that we have on this section. I'm trying to look if I've not missed any, but I'm not sure. But if I have actually missed, please do well to reach back to us by reading. You can actually, there is actually an information screen. You just send us an email at precisionfieldacademy@gmail.com for inquiries for and questions. It would be good to actually hear from you. So, but I want to say thank you so much to Tawanda for actually coming on I know you have actually been busy. A lot of work down in Southern Africa. Well done. But thank you so much for actually sharing your schedule for us to actually impact us with knowledge. And you have not only impacted us with knowledge, you have also inspired some next generation drone professionals. Trust me, and I believe that sooner or later, you're going to be seeing folks saying, I listened to you. Oh, yeah, during the incubation program from the Sophie Academy, and I was inspired. I was encouraged. You gave clarity, and direction. And I'm super, super glad. And so always personally having you by my side, for us to actually share insights. Really, you've been an amazing professional fellow and mentor. So before we actually wrap up, can you actually give a last word, advice, comments, to the students and also to what we do? Thank you so
much. Thank you. So first of all, I think my comment is well done to you, Femi, for putting together this program. I think it's really selfless and really a testament to your passion and your drive and your desire to see young Africans getting into this space, leading in this space. So well done to you and your team. Continue to do this. For those of you who joined on this platform, you have no idea what this is. This is gold that you're getting right now. When we started in the industry, we didn't have people to look up to. We didn't have these kind of opportunities. We didn't have access to this kind of information. So we kind of went the hard way. And it took us a lot longer to gather this information that we're now sharing. I'm sharing this information in a 1 hour presentation, but it's years. It's years of making mistakes. It's years of learning and growing and seeing what works and what doesn't. So you may not realize it, but I think you're really privileged, and I hope that the rest of the program, that you attend the rest of the sessions, and take as much as you can. Take in as much as you can. Connect with the different speakers. What matters more is what you're going to do after this program, and what path you take. I definitely would say, even if you don't have access to the licensing program, pursue it. I had to leave my country. I went and got licensed before my own country had regulations, because I was like, no, it needs to be done. So take advantage of every opportunity that you can get. Invest in yourself. It will be costly and potentially painful in the beginning. It was very painful for me to get my licensing initially, but invest in yourself. All right? That is really one of the best ways that you can advance in this space, is invest in knowledge, attend conferences, attend workshops, attend these webinars, get licensed and that kind of thing, right? And connected to Precision Field Academy. I think these guys are doing amazing work, not only in the West African space, but across the African continent. I think they're doing really, really amazing work. And for me, it's just an honor and a privilege to be on this platform, to be able to just share a little bit about what we're doing. And I look forward to connecting with you guys and seeing you guys do amazing work. I'd love to get a message from someone, who's attended this to say, oh, look, this is what I've been able to do, since doing the Precision Field Academy training program. So all the best to you guys. And I look forward to seeing you guys as professionals within this space and making waves and leading in this space. Okay. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tawanda, for those encouraging and executive words. They are actually, inspiring also. Guys, we have come to the end of today's section, and our next section is going to be on-site, where we are going to be talking and doing drone building, really on model aircraft. So to actually get you deep in understanding the physics, and the mechanics that actually goes into drone technology, what makes drone technology fly, and you'll be bringing them all together. So Bolaji Davis is going to be handling that. Very good guy. So thank you so much again, Tawanda. It's actually good. So we'll be ending the stream now. So we look forward to the next class. Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Thank you so much.